hopefully today's show could truly change some people's lives for the better. And I wanted to talk about an issue that's running rampant in our society today and offer some amazing new advances in the field. And that problem is the multitude of emotional disturbances and mental disorders that are so prevalent in society today. We all know people that are suffering with depression, anxiety, ADD, bipolar disorder, feelings of hopelessness, sleep problems, dementia, and on and on and on. So brain health is a very important issue. And that's not to mention the huge number of people that just don't feel right on most days. You know, that never gets calculated into this. Many people today are just getting through the day sort of one day at a time, just existing, not feeling like really themselves, you know, and I talk to people all the time that say, you know, I don't necessarily have full-blown depression, but I just don't feel myself. I just don't feel like I wish that I felt.
Doc, it's so funny you should bring this up this morning, because did you hear what Robin Williams' wife said about his suicide?
I didn't.
She says here, he didn't commit suicide because of depression. He was suffering from, now I may have this wrong, please forgive me if I mispronounce it, Lewy body dementia? It's Lewy, Lewy body dementia, and which is sort of like Alzheimer's. How do you say it?
Alzheimer's.
Okay. A doctor told her, quote, Robin was very aware that he was losing his mind, and there was nothing he could do about it.
Yeah. Brain health is a big, big issue.
Huge.
And so these problems have become more and more prevalent in our society. And, you know, this is something I've been trying to solve this puzzle for a long time. Just trying to research and find out, why is this happening? What's going on with our brain health in society today that it didn't used to be? And, you know, there's really a multitude of things that can add up to the true answer to that. But my research led me to study some of the functional nutrition techniques that are being practiced by a Dr. Rob DiMartino in Nevada on this subject, and the results with patients that he's getting, I mean, is absolutely jaw-dropping. And so a few weeks ago, we traveled to go visit Dr. Rob's program in Nevada, and we were just blown away by some of the conditions and some of the brain conditions and things that he's helping restore people back to a healthier brain. And now, these emotional disorders are a result of really one underlying thing, and that is neurotransmitter malfunction. Now, neurotransmitters are the chemical messengers that allow your brain parts to communicate with each other. So in other words, you've heard someone say they had a chemical imbalance. Well, that's the chemicals they're talking about, are neurotransmitters. It's the chemical messengers of where one part of your brain communicates with the other part. And now the big question, though, is why are they out of balance? Not so much this person has a chemical imbalance, but then ask the question, why?
Okay, so what it is we've got a transmitter, and it stops, and there's a little river of stuff, fluid, and then on the other side of the river we have a receptor.
Absolutely.
And that transmitter has to go through the little river of fluid and be received by the receiver. So you're saying that little river of fluid between the two sometimes messes up?
Yeah, and the neurotransmitters themselves mess up. Maybe the body doesn't have what it needs to build those neurotransmitters.
So the transmitter can't be received, or the transmitter's receiving and the receiver's not working. It's not, or maybe the chemical in between. There's three things could be wrong here.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so that all has to be looked at. But, you know, the big question that no one is asking is, now what? We know there's some sort of a problem there, but what can we do from a natural perspective to try to make that whole system work and function better? And
you're saying it's more common today than it was, say, 50 years ago.
Much so.
Okay.
So
is it because, I've got a bunch of questions.
Oh,
Is it because that they didn't know how to diagnose it 50 years ago? Was it happening and they just didn't know, or was it simply not happening?
Yeah, I remember back in the day when they would just say, "Oh, she's just got hardening of the arteries."
Right.
Is what they used to call it. You remember that?
I know. I heard that a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And it wasn't actually hardening the arteries. It was some sort of Alzheimer's or dementia. Right?
Absolutely. And so I think there is some of that going on, that it was just more readily diagnosed now, but I don't think it's all. I think it's much more prevalent. A lot more people. Yeah. I think there's a lot more people that just don't feel good. They don't feel themselves.
It
They're
seems to
random,
happen to people earlier, too.
or much earlier. Teens is a
Yeah.
big
There's a
problem
lot
with
of
this.
people on medicines for those conditions right now.
Right.
In the United States.
So here's the point I want to make with this, though. It makes perfect sense to somebody that maybe say they have something wrong with their heart, maybe they have plaquing or something, to tell them you can do things naturally, you can eat better, you can exercise, you can go for walks, and your heart will get healthier.
Mm-hmm.
But when you talk about the brain, that's never really talked about. Like, you can do things from a natural perspective to make your brain healthier and work better. It would make sense if you tell someone, well, you have weak muscles, you can exercise them to get them better.
Sure.
You have problems with your heart, you can do things naturally to make that healthier.
You can go to rehab for all that.
There are things you can do for your brain to make it work better. It's an organ, just like all your other organs, and it can be made better.
You know, it's funny you should say that, because we don't. I don't think society thinks about the brain that way.
Right. We don't think about that.
No.
But the brain can be made to work better, just like your heart or any other organ or tissue. So what we're going to do after the break is I'm going to go through the top 3 neurotransmitters, what they do, and how to help them get back into balance naturally. And listen, this segment after the break is going to be something special. So I want our listeners, if you know someone that's suffering with emotional disturbances or any kind of problem like that, like dementia, anything, call them and tell them to tune in. This is going to be quite a special segment that we're going to go through right after the break. So stay tuned. Anybody you know who suffers with any of these emotional type problems, call them, tell them to tune in right after the break.